Hello, students, and welcome to an MTQs practice session for Business and Corporate Law, also known as LW. In this session, I'm going to explain some multitask questions to you, and that will give you an idea on how you can attempt the MCQs in the paper. Obviously, when we cover the difficult part, that is the MTQs with the scenario and extracting legal points from there, if you understand these concepts, then you can easily apply that to the MCQs portion as well. So for today's discussion, we are going to focus on the contracts portion of the course. So let's get started with it. When I'm explaining the question first, I will describe the scenario to you. Uh, but before that, first I will read the question requirement and then I'll read the scenario. After that, after I'm done saying that, what you could do is you could pause the video, try to figure out the answer for yourself, and then when I explain it with legal reasoning, then you can compare your answer to mine. So the first one is, on Friday, 10th December, the following notice is placed in the window of Anne's Art Gallery. Two copies of very rare Blake print, 15,000 each. Okay. Now, with just the beginning, now we read the MCQ's requirement, part A, B, and C, so that we have at least a background. It is not a particular requirement per se, but it is sort of a technique that I recommend to students so that you do not have to read the question twice, the scenario at least twice. So it saves you a little bit of time. But having said that, time is generally not an issue in this paper. I have never come across a student of mine who has come out of the paper and complained about the time was less. That could happen in the papers where you have to write your answer. It is a subjective type of paper. So in MCQs, usually that doesn't happen, provided that person has prepared well. So just as a tip, it's not a 100% compulsory approach. It is just a recommendation. Which two of the following statement concerning offers are correct? So we know that he is going to ask about offer. Which two of the following correctly describes the nature of notice? So we have to focus on what the notice is, and which of the following parties does Anne have a binding contract with? So we know that there will be two parties included for which we have to identify whether they have a binding contract or not. So let's get started with it. So we see that the notice is placed in the window. And from earlier understanding, you would know that a notice, an advertisement without any reward, or a general notice in the newspaper, advertisement in the newspaper, these are not offers. These are basically invitation to treat. In this scenario, we say two copies of very rare Blake print. What is Blake print? It is not our concern right now. If it is not mentioned categorically, we will assume that it is a legal object. No issue with that. And this is the price or consideration that party is asking and is asking for it. Okay. Now, what is the importance of this notice? Legally, it is nothing. It is not an offer. Chaz and Dave are very keen to acquire the prints, but think that the price is too high. Okay, understandable. They each offer an 12,000 for a copy. So, what is this 12,000 which they are making? This is an offer. But she refuses to sell the prints at that price. Refuses. This is rejection. And with rejection, we know that automatically the original offer goes away. So at the moment, there is no offer on the table, right? Although she says that she will accept 13,500. Okay, now this is counter offer, you can say, or another offer, because there is already rejection. We can say the original offer was lost, but still, this is now the valid offer on the table. She also says that she will keep her offer to them open until 12 o'clock on Monday, following Monday, 13th December, if they each pay 100 pounds. They did so. and each hands over 100 pounds. Now, the basic understanding here, now that we have a delay between offer and acceptance, then we go to the modes of acceptance. Modes mean in which mode will it be communicated, the offer will be communicated to the offerer. The point here is that we have to look into the original situation in which the exchange was made. It was face to face, not via emails, not via post, not on telephone. It was face to face. Now, here the reasonable contemplation in the mind of the offerer is, because no specific mode has been described, that you will send me the acceptance by post or whatever, it's not mentioned. So if it is not mentioned, we look at the what will be the original offerer thinking, or the offerer thinking. She would be thinking that, okay, fine, we have had a discussion face to face, and when they want to accept, they will again come back. And obviously it makes sense as well, when you have to receive the this such an expensive item, you would want to come yourself and look that the specific, that particular item is being packed. So this is in the reasonable contemplation, reasonable thinking, reasonable contemplation of the offerer, that the acceptance will also be face to face. All right. Now, on Saturday before the deadline, Chaz and Dave have to leave country on business. But before they do so, each posts a letter. Instead of face to face acceptance, they post the letter. Now, generally, we know that postal rule applies, and postal rule applies to posting the letter, not receiving the letter, or even we say if it is delayed or even lost in the letter, acceptance is still valid. But we cannot apply postal rule here, because from the point of view of the offerer, she is expecting people to come and accept that offer. Now, whereas the letters have been posted, it is different. So posting of letter is not in reasonable contemplation, therefore it is not a valid mode of payment. However, stating that he agrees to buy one of the prints at agreed price, so there is no issue with the price, but the issue is that of acceptance mode. Chiaz's letter arrives at 9:30 on Monday morning. Okay, now it is within time. So now, when it is within time, even though Chaz himself has not arrived, but his acceptance has reached the offerer. Therefore, it can be a valid offer, valid acceptance. But Dave's letter is delayed and arrived on morning of Tuesday, that is after due date. Understanding that we cannot apply the postal rule here, and then we apply this scenario that the letter is representing the sender, then only Chaz's offer has made it in time. Therefore, this is a valid acceptance, whereas Dave's letter has reached late. Therefore, that is not a valid acceptance. So, let's answer the questions now. Which two of the following statements concerning offers are correct? An offer is a definite promise to be bound on specific terms. That is correct. An offer can include uncertain terms? No, it cannot include uncertain, vague, ambiguous terms. An offer can be made to a specific class of a person? Because it says can, yes, it is possible. If it says an offer must be made to a specific class of person, that is not a legal requirement. It can be made to individual, it can be made to group of people, it can be made to the whole world at large. An offer should be made verbally in order to be valid? No, there is no specific. There could be an implied offer, there could be a written offer. So neither of these are correct. Which of the following correctly describes the nature of notice in Anne's window? That is an invitation to treat. It's not an offer. It is not an invitation to tender, and intention to create legal relation is not there. This notice is not representing that. Which of the following parties does Anne have a binding contract with? With all these explanation, she has a binding contract with Chaz, but no binding contract with Dave. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Okay. Ace Limited placed the following notice in January edition of its company journal to request help in solving a problem with one of its computer products, the brand. 10,000 reward to any employee who can design a solution to the brag problem before 1st April. That is the due date or deadline. Now, first of all, we know that notice in an art gallery, just like the previous question, in the newspaper, it's not an offer, but here is a reward attached to it. Therefore, it is a valid offer. However, it has been made to a specific group of people. So only those who belong to this group can accept the offer and no one outside that group. And that also has to be done by before 1st April. All right. Another thing, we know that in such a case, it has the acceptance is not needed to be communicated to the offerer. Only starting, not ending, starting on what was the requirement of the advertisement, reward advertisement, or the offer, we can say that the acceptance has been done. Okay. Sid, who was married to an employee of Ace Limited, he was not an employee himself. He was married to an employee of Ace Limited. That's not the same status. Read the journal and thought that he could solve the problem. So started working on it. Okay. He started working before the due date. Ed, employed by Ace Limited. So, okay, fine. Now, Ed is the employee himself, saw the advert and decided to work on it. Ed solved the problem, but before he could notify Ace Limited, the company decided to cancel the brag product and placed a notice in the March edition. They had time till April, but they cancelled it out on March of its journal, cancelling the reward. Now, does it matter for Ed? No, because he had already started working on it and communicating that uh, acceptance to the employer, that is Ace Limited, is not required because this is a unilateral contract which comes here. The offer of a reward creates which type of a contract? Okay, that will be a unilateral contract usually made to a group of people or world at large. Then uh, the next question, which of the following statement is correct? Now it is asking about Sid. We know that Sid is not an employee himself, and the offer, because it was made specifically to employees, therefore he cannot claim the reward even if he had solved the problem. So he may claim, no, he did solve the problem because his wife is an employee. Okay, he is not an employee. Her wife could accept it, but he cannot. May claim for the work he did to solve the breakthrough because the offer was made to the world at large. No, it was not made to the world at large. It was made to a specific group of people. Sid may not claim for the work he did to solve Bragg problem because the offer was not made to him. In these circumstances, this is the most likely. Sid may not claim for work he did to solve Bragg problem because the offer was cancelled before. No, that is not a legal reason. If he were the employee, then he could claim even if the offer was cancelled out, but his acceptance was before cancellation. So C is the best answer. Now, about Ed. Can he claim? Yes, but we have to have a legal reason for that. Ed may claim for the work he did to solve Bragg problem because he started to work before Ace Limited revoked their offer. Yes, that seems likely, but let's see the other option. Ed may claim for the work he did to solve the Bragg problem because he is an employee. Just because he is an employee, he cannot accept it. He cannot claim the reward because every employee is not required to is not to claim the reward. Only those employees who have started working before cancellation can be considered, and only that one will be rewarded who has solved the problem. So both conditions have to be met. Ed may not claim for the work he did to solve Bragg because Ace Limited lawfully revoked. They have lawfully revoked, but not for those who had already started working on it, and number two, who belong to that particular group. And lastly, Ed may not claim for the work he did to solve Bragg problem because the work he did is worth less than the reward. There is no such thing because consideration it needs to be need not to be at the market value. So first option is correct in this. Okay, this question is about the partial payment of consideration. Zri operates a business as a designer of internet web pages for a variety of business clients. Unfortunately, he has some difficulty in recovering his fees from a number of clients. Now, when you are some amount is due and your debtor comes to you and says that this and this is the situation and I cannot pay you complete payment, I have to give you partial payment. We know that it has to have uh, the requirements fulfilled, like it can be from the third party, via third party, it can be in other currency, it can be a change of shape, it can be before the due date, it can be a composition agreement between the creditors, things like that. But there will always be reluctance. We cannot consider reluctance to be the absence of accord. Accord means that you agree with it. Satisfaction means that these conditions are met, third party payment and so on. You see, it is but natural that if somebody is making a partial payment to you, you would not be willing for that. Even if you agree and lawfully you are bound to it, you're not happy with it, obviously, because you're not getting the full amount. So in this case, we will see that in all the situation, the word reluctance will be used. So for this case, you need to not consider the word reluctance, because technically everybody, practically everybody will be reluctant. But we cannot say that reluctance is the absence of accord in this case. So we need two situations for partial payments: accord and satisfaction. It has to be with the consent, no undue pressure, no threats, and it needs to have any of the conditions fulfilled: before due date, different time, different place, uh, different person, third party making the payment. So for that, you need to go to our lecture and study the whole concept of partial payments. The details are over there. So let's consider the first case. Ed add a self-employed car mechanic without contacting Zri. Without contacting means she has not she some amount was due to him, but he's just sent something. Without contacting means there is no consent. Simply send him a check for half of his fee, stating that he could not pay anymore and the check was in full settlement of his outstanding debt. Zri rang Ad about this and reluctantly agreed to waive half the fee. Okay. Now, even though uh, there is, we can say, rang Ad and there is now consent, but with this partial payment, what is the satisfaction? Is she getting something in return which may or may not be equal to the value of the amount that is still due to him? For example, the total amount was, say, 100 pounds. He has sent a check for half, 50. So remaining 50 is still due. For this remaining 50, if she agrees that, okay, fine, I waive it off. For this waiving off to be valid, he has to give something of value that may or may not be equal to 50 pounds. What does it mean? For example, he sends a pen which is worth only 5 pounds. It is not 50, but we know for consideration it needs not to be of equal market value. So within the contract where he still has to pay 50 pounds and the other party is waiving off is new consideration here. So for that new consideration to be valid, you have to give something new as well, which may not be of the same value. So he did not do that. He just sent the check. So amount, the debt is still recoverable for him. By a newly qualified accountant told Sri that although she can only raise the cash to pay half of the outstanding, similar case, she would, as an alternative to paying the other half, do all of Zri's accountancy work for the coming year. Zri reluctantly agreed. Again, we do not consider reluctantly here. Agreed is the consent. But you see the difference? In the first case, Ad was not offering anything with regard to the partial payment that is still to be paid. But here she is offering the service. It is not mentioned how much would that count or how much was the amount. But still, if she's offering something in return, then and that is accepted, then we can say that the amount has been paid in full. So that remaining debt in this case will not be recoverable. Cass, a self-employed musician, told Ree that she could not pay any of the money she owed him. However, her father, third party, uh, offered to pay Zri but could only manage half of the total amount owed. Once again, Zri reluctantly agreed to accept the payment. So, if you accept payment, partial payment from a third party, remember here it is saying half. We do not say half, it is the partial payment. Whatever, suppose they are paying 10% and they want 90% waiver, there is no problem with that. Partial payment is the main thing. So, here in this case, third party is making the payment, then the debt is fully paid. Dex, the owner of a nursery, told Zri that she could not afford to pay Zri's will, but that she would provide a week's childcare to Zri for free. Okay. Now we see that a payment, a different mode of payment is made. So service is being made, just like the third case. But the issue is that Zri currently does not have any children. This means that this mode of payment is not acceptable to her. She has not accepted. She cannot accept it. Okay. So in this case, which of the following correctly describe the principle of promissory estoppel? Here, promissory estoppel is not discussed. It is discussed about the partial payment, but we already know what is the promissory estoppel. When you do not have a contract with somebody, but you have acted on the promise made by a party, and that party is now backing off the promise, and because of relying on that promise you had already incurred some problems and expenses, and now that all will go in vain, and now you will suffer loss. So law can apply the promissory estoppel and stop that party to going back on their promise. This is promissory estoppel. Okay. A promissory estoppel, promise made under contract law cannot be retracted if a person to whom the promise was made relies on it. This is basically promissory estoppel. A promise made under contract law cannot be retracted under any circumstances. This is not correct. In some circumstances where the other party has not relied on it, have not started to act on it, that can be retracted. A promise made under contract law is legally enforceable. Yes, it is legally enforceable, but that is not the promissory estoppel. A promise made under contract law is sufficient consideration. Yes, it is sufficient consideration, but that is not promissory estoppel. So we have to look what is the question demanding and not to be confused with the answers. Because you see, generally speaking, if it says true or false, both these statements are true. But it is not asking about true or false, it is asking about what a promissory estoppel is. In this case, can Zri recover the outstanding amount from the following parties? We have established it from add and Dex, the amount is recoverable from, but from buy and cash, it is not recoverable. So I hope this was a good session for you. You would have learned primarily how the principle, the legal principle you study in the law class, how are they applied onto different questions. I'll be posting another video in this regard as well. So stay put for that. Thank you very much. Take care and goodbye.